What's up, and welcome to episode 69 of the Jake Talk Sports Podcast. I am here today with my man, HammyTakes. How are you, bro?
I'm good, man. How about you?
I'm doing good, man. Obviously, this is the first time, one of the first times I've had another Packers fan on the show, so feel a little bit
Go
more
Packos.
comfortable having a Packers fan. Uh,
Yeah.
I always got these NFC North rivals on my show, and they talk a lot of
Oh
crap,
yeah.
so it's good to have you on, man.
Geek Slays
Um,
and David.
yes,
Yeah, man.
sir, dude. They're the worst.
I l-
I love those guys.
I do
Uh,
too.
but yeah, since we're both Packers fans, it feels only right to start off by talking about the Packers. This team somehow, some way, after the season they've had, is playing for a shot at the playoffs next week. So on the off chance, there's no guarantee, but on the off chance that they do make the playoffs, what do
Mhm.
you think we see? Do you think the Packers are a dangerous playoff team or no?
Um, Here's my concern. I think the Packers, what we're seeing a lot more and what hurt us in the past, couple of years when we were in the playoffs, we weren't spreading the ball a lot. We kept focusing on like Devontae Adams or like the number one receiver, if you from like the way I see it. This year, I feel like we've been leaning more on the running game and we're starting to find open guys. Now, obviously, what we did to Minnesota last week, that was nice to see. Um, but in regards of like contending with the other teams and seeing what the Packers can do, I think it's a little bit of a challenge considering that this will be the rookies, wide receivers. That's their first playoffs. The experience level may potentially start to kick in, but they're starting to get it going with the chemistry. So I'm kind of excited to see. In regards of like how I view this team, like do I think if they could be a dangerous team in the postseason? Um, I feel like the Packers they can, but the problem is how is the defense going to play? Is Joe Barry going to put Jair in zone coverage, or is he going to start putting him more man to man? So like it's just really more so about what the coaching is going to be. Because the Packers have the potential to be a dangerous team. Will the coaching do it? That's what I'm a little concerned about.
Yeah, and I feel like it's just so frustrating because all of a sudden last week Joe Barry decides that Jai Alexander gets to play man coverage on Justin Jefferson, one of the best
Mhm.
receivers in the league, and he does that. It just makes me
Mhm.
wonder exactly what would have happened if he'd been playing man all year, right? Like
Right.
Would Terry McLaurin have torched us, and would the Commanders have beaten us, or would the
Mhm.
Giants have beaten us if he was covering their top guy? It really makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Although if this defense plays really good and they beat the Lions next week and then they maybe win a playoff game where the defense still plays really good, would you still consider keeping Joe Barry, or are you pretty set on no matter what happens he's got to go? Because I'm personally on the no matter what happens, I think he's got to go train.
I'm right with you, man.
Yeah.
Because, dude, there's like zero. We've been in a few close games.
Yeah.
There's absolutely just seeing what you're doing to Jair Alexander, who has honestly shown you that he's the best cornerback in football. If it's not Jalen Ramsey or Sauce Gardner right now,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Patrick Kane, like, and he just got a massive contract. Like, he's there. He's literally a premier lockdown corner, and we're not scheming Jair Alexander to play that. So like,
Yeah.
I don't understand what Joe Barry is thinking. He was pretty good. He was good last year, but this year I'm like, what on earth? And I will say, when the Joe Barry hiring occurred before last season, he was the defensive coordinator for Washington, and
Hmm.
they had a pretty iffy defense, a very iffy defense when they had him. But at the same time, there was optimism because he was part of the Rams defense back in 2020. Like, he was part of that coaching staff with Brandon Staley and them. So there was a little bit of optimism, and he kind of showed it last year that I think this defense can have potential. But seeing what happened this year, like especially scheming Jair Alexander in zone coverage, I mean, Packers fans, there's a reason why we keep mentioning this, because there's no way on earth Jair Alexander should be playing zone coverage.
Right.
He is a man-to-man corner. This is a lockdown corner. You put him on the best receiver, and there you go. But I
Yeah.
just don't know what Joe Barry is thinking.
Yeah.
He's
I
got to
mean,
go no
like,
matter what.
oh yeah. I mean, it's just like It's so disappointing because before the season, I myself, ton of Packers fans, I'm sure you were on this train. We all were saying that the offense isn't going to be great, but man, this defense, I mean, come on, it's going to be
Everyone,
phenomenal.
a lot,
Everybody, and
everyone was saying this.
even people who aren't Packers fans are like, I know the offense isn't good, but on paper, this defense is top five. And then
Yeah,
all of a sudden, they come out and just have a stinker beginning of the season, like absolutely
exactly. Everyone had
unbelievable
hype.
disaster class against the Vikings
Hmm.
defensively, who turned out to
But
be a good team, so we'll take it. But overall, I mean, I just I don't know where this Packers team that played at Lambeau against Minnesota last week came from, and I don't know why they hadn't
I,
shown up. I mean, really, like they waltz into Miami and beat one of the best teams in the AFC, and then they take a home stand against one of the best teams in the NFC and beat them,
mhm,
and you just have to wonder where it all was all this time. I
exactly.
mean,
And then the one thing that really changed it was having Keyshawn Nixon be our
dude,
returner.
oh my gosh, I can't
Listen,
believe it.
I'm like, well, I don't know if you may feel the same way, but I kind of feel bad for Amari Rogers because we did not draft this man to return
That is
kicks.
true. Yeah,
We did not draft him for that.
he was like a gadget receiver kind of guy,
Hmm.
and he was out there. And like I said this in one of my TikTok videos, and I'm not entirely sure if I'm correct, but I really think that in my lifetime, Keyshawn Nixon's one of the best Packers returners I've ever seen. We have not
Yeah,
had some good ones, like in my 19
I
years of
can't
living.
remember the last
I
time
can't remember
we've
the last time we
seen.
had like a solid returner, and
I
he's
can't
taking them
remember
like
anything.
90 plus yards. I'm just like, man, if we had him all year, our field position would be different. And it just kind of
Mhm.
seems like the end of the season for the Packers is they're showing us what they could have been, and
Yeah,
it's probably a
100%.
little too late. I
Yeah.
think personally, I think we're beating the Lions. I think we're making the playoffs,
Hmm.
in my opinion. I don't think
Yeah.
they're going to sweep us. I can't remember the last time the Lions swept the Packers. Like it's
Listen,
got to have been a
we put
long
up 9
time.
points and we held them to 15, and I think
Yeah,
like at
I think with the
Detroit.
improvements the team has made, I think
Mhm.
we'll be okay, especially at home. Aaron Rodgers at home in December with a playoff January in the spot,
Right.
playoff spot on the line. I mean, I don't see him throwing like 3 picks against them like he did the first time.
He
Like
ain't
no
doing it.
shot, no way.
My
Um,
trust is on 12 always,
yeah,
man.
yeah. So we're talking a little bit about coaching. And
Mhm.
early in the season, I had some conversations with some people about whether or not Matt LaFleur should be on the hot seat, or whether or not Matt LaFleur was the problem, right?
I never bought
Because
that.
a lot of the narratives were that, oh, maybe Matt LaFleur isn't this offensive genius and it was all Nathaniel Hackett, blah, 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 whatever, or Luke Getsy or whatever. And I kind of think that if they lose another first round playoff game this year, or they lose to Detroit, finish with a losing record,
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think he should be fired. But if we don't see some serious success under LaFleur, it might be in consideration because maybe he's just not
There's
the
a
right coach
chance.
for this team. I would
There's
say,
a chance.
yeah.
Mhm. And I think a little bit of our play calling, kinda losing Nathaniel Hackett, kinda did a little shaking up the offense a little bit.
Hmm.
Like I could see it, but I think probably give Lafleur maybe another season or two, see how he does with this roster. If the team is going to be, it's not like what it was like, the first 3 years, and there's going to be consideration because obviously you're going to look at the record. But I mean, Matt Lafleur, you saw what he did when when we had Devontae Adams, even though I still miss him to this day. When we had Devontae Adams, I mean, you saw the Packers have one of the best offenses, and then all of a sudden it's just like it's
Yeah.
broken. Now, I do give him credit, Luke Getsy not being here, even though give him credit, he's doing a heck of a job right now in Chicago,
Oh
despite
yes.
how bad their wide receiving situation is. What he's doing with Justin Fields, you love to see it. Like
Hmm.
even though I'm anti Bears, but I do would like to see Justin Fields, succeed in this league because he was one of my favorite quarterbacks coming from that draft class.
Sure.
But seeing what Getsy's doing to Justin Fields, I think it's kind of nice to see what's going on over there, and I could see some potential going on. But Nathaniel Hackett, I really don't know how we ended up losing him.
It really did come out of nowhere,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. Like I thought that I didn't think he would be a good head coach. So I kind of
Yeah.
went into the offseason with the mentality like I don't think anybody's going to hire this dude because I think
Mm-hmm.
he's a great offensive coordinator and I think that he will probably fill that role pretty well for a different team next year. But the
Probably so.
Broncos hired him and I was just like this ain't going to work. Like
They only did
he
it
cannot be a head
just for
coach for
Aaron
a
Rodgers
team.
to come to Denver. That was the
Yeah,
only purpose.
and then Rodgers didn't even do it. He signed this huge extension like 2 weeks later. I don't get it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think that Joe Barry probably needs to go, like we talked about. I
100%.
think that Brian Gutekunst. I don't know if how he gets fired, but if we have another bad draft class, man, I don't
That's
know.
the thing. I'm worried about this draft. This one is honestly is kind of where the pressure's on Brian Gutekunst.
Right, because like we can move into talking about the offseason a little bit. Like,
Right.
where do you think the Packers should go with wherever they end up picking? Like, if they lose this week, I'm pretty sure they pick like 12th or 13th, maybe. Like, I don't think any of like the top guys are going to be available. Like, what position do you think they should go after?
I keep seeing a lot of mock drafts of us getting Jackson Smith and the Jigma, and I'm like,
I
are
don't
we
know,
really gonna
man.
do that? Like
Another rookie wide receiver. Yeah,
That's what I'm. But even though Smith and Jigma is very elite and he's probably
of
the best wide
course.
receiver in this
Yeah,
draft class,
yeah.
but my thing is like I'm a little concerned about like our offensive line situation because the Packers sometimes they are kind of known for having a pretty good offensive line.
Sure.
I kind of want to see address that area a little bit. Um, Defensive wise, we suck at depth at secondary.
Oh my
We
gosh.
suck
Yeah.
at it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Atlanta Falcons, when they have AJ Terrell, then they have Casey Hayward, even though their secondary is trash, but like ours is like we have Jair Alexander. Rasul Douglas kind of took a step back. Even
He
though he's
goes
not
back
that,
and forth. He's not really the most consistent guy.
yeah, he's very inconsistent. And then
Eric Stokes hasn't been
Eric Stokes,
fantastic. I don't even know if he plays. I think he's been hurt or off the
yeah,
field. And like Adrian Amos is okay. Like Darnell
right.
Savage is okay, but like Jair is the only like guy in the secondary where I can look at him and say, I trust you. I trust you to make a
Right.
play. Like everybody else, I'm like, I could see you getting toasted any day of the week, right?
100%. But like outside of Jair Alexander and Eric Stokes, like our backups, oh man, we really do not have depth at secondary. I would kind of want to see the Packers somewhat address that in the draft, like try to get a corner that you can develop.
And I think the thing with like Jackson Smith and Jigba, you said he's a fantastic wide receiver. But the what makes Rodgers so great is he develops trust in these receivers, and that's what happened with Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams not supposed to be a good wide receiver coming out of college, not supposed to be what he is now. But Aaron Rodgers loved him and kept throwing him the ball even when he sucked his rookie year.
Right.
Okay, and
we're seeing that with Christian Watson.
Yeah, exactly, and that relationship kept building and building and building. Now he's gone, but he's the best receiver in football, one of the best receivers in football. Definitely still in that conversation. And I just think that one of Christian Watson or Romeo Doubs is kind of on that same path because if Rodgers starts to trust these guys next year, he'll have Lazard, who he already likes and he trusts, and he'll have those two guys. I'm fine going in next year with this receiving core. I think wherever we pick is a little too high for a receiver, even if it's Jackson Smith and Jigba. I don't buy it.
Yeah, I don't blame you 100%. Wait, how long is Lazard under contract till?
I actually don't know when the last time we paid him was.
Let me actually look that up because I know
that's
we
interesting.
Re-signed him. We did re-sign him this free agency, and he was on I think he was on a restricted contract.
He signed a 1-year deal last year, so his contract is up. Like this is it. So he's a free agent after this year, so we would have to pay him. There's our next point of topic. Do you pay Allen Lazard? If you're Brian Gutekunst, do you pay Allen Lazard?
I think right now he's like 27 years old, so he's almost there. I think if you want someone to like continue helping with the wide receiving core, I could see why you want to keep Lazard because Lazard is pretty good in terms of like the short area targets and all that stuff. And literally, probably one of the best, or not the best blocking wide receiver.
Insane, dude.
Insane.
Yeah. That's why our run game's so good, man. Like he is legit.
You don't find wide receivers that can block as well as Allen Lazard does. But if this is a guy that Aaron Rodgers trusts, and you want to have that little veteran, type of player to come up big in some of those key moments, I think I would resign Alan Lazard, but I wouldn't probably give him like an insane contract. I would probably give him like a mid level to like probably I would say like somewhere around where like a veteran would probably make maybe a little bit more
Yeah,
than that, but
yeah.
not like to like a huge like a huge
I think
contract.
it really depends on what he asks for.
That's
Like
the
if
thing.
Lazard were to come out here and be like, "I want 7 million a year," I'd be like, "Whoa!" Like
Oh,
let's knock
calm
that down a
down.
bit.
Maybe
Yeah,
4 or 5 million.
4 or 5, depending on how long the contract was for.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not opposed to re-signing him. I just think that,
Right.
yeah, if it's the same situation that the Bears are in with David Montgomery, like if Montgomery were
Right.
to ask for too much, I wouldn't do it. But if he asked for like a reasonable price, I would take him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and yeah, going back to the playoffs, if we were to make the playoffs right now, you and I have talked about this personally, it would
Mm-hmm.
be the good old San Francisco 49ers once more. And here's my thing. Okay, I've been thinking about this a lot. I think we'd beat them
Mm.
because I think if our defense plays the way they played against Minnesota, sure, their defense is good. But I think if our defense plays the way they do against Minnesota, it really just comes down to Brock Purdy versus Aaron Rodgers. No
That's
deep,
true.
no Debo Samuel,
Mm-hmm.
most likely. Jair on Brandon Ayuk. I don't know. Like
Someone's got to guard Kittle.
that's the problem. Like Devondre
George
Campbell, I
Kittle
love
is
you, but
probably
you
the
can't do
number
that.
one concern that I would have because
Yeah,
obviously, yeah, Jair on Ayuk,
because that's the thing,
assuming
man.
it
Is
beat,
like
and then Christian
I
McCaffrey, dude, he's unstoppable.
yeah, and that's the thing is like I feel like as much as I say like oh the defense could play well, I feel like McCaffrey would just do to us what Raheem Mostert did to us in that NFC Championship game a couple years ago where he rushed
Yeah,
for like 200 yards.
right.
Right.
I
I
still don't know how this man did not make the Pro Bowl, but Miles Sanders did. I
oh
don't know
my
if you saw
gosh.
my TikTok. I was just like, I was on almost going on to a rant. Miles Sanders making the Pro Bowl over Christian McCaffrey. I thought that was criminal.
The funniest part is like Miles Sanders runs behind like literally the best offensive line in football. And this is a
Exactly.
dude who had 0 touchdowns with that same offensive line last year, like no production. He was getting outproduced by like Boston Scott, like Kenneth
Right.
Gainwell. And McCaffrey, who
Mhm.
goes from a pretty good offensive line in Carolina to a really, besides Trent Williams, not that fantastic of an offensive line.
Right.
San Francisco. And also, like his ability as a receiving back. I mean, I'm sure you saw the play against the Raiders where he caught it out of the backfield and
Mhm.
just dragged defenders. I'm just like,
I
man,
still believe that McCaffrey is like the most like in terms of overall talent in the entire league. I think he's the most talented running back in football
oh yeah, McCaffrey at his peak is borderline
at
a
his
top three
peak.
running back.
One
Like if he
hundred
fully
percent.
healthy at his peak like talent level, he is
Mhm.
a top three running back in the NFL for
One
sure.
hundred percent.
And
I
like,
think I may honestly, if I were to do a running backs ranking right now, I get that Josh Jacobs is having an incredible year, but I'm taking McCaffrey ahead of him.
yeah, I don't buy the Josh Jacobs hype
Yeah,
as
that's the
much as
thing.
some people do. I see some people having him as like RB1 and 2, and I love him, and I think he's had a fantastic season.
One
But
hundred percent.
I just I don't know if I can put him in the top three right now over like Saquon, Henry, Chubb, and
Who they
CMC.
were
I mean,
already more proven before Jacobs came along. You know,
right, and like I guarantee you, Jacobs doesn't come out and do the same thing next year, but like Derrick
that's the
Henry will,
problem.
and Nick Chubb
The-
will.
Yeah, you can trust Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb because they shown you consistency. McCaffrey too, and Saquon as well. Josh Jacobs, I feel like this is kind of like his breakout year. You know, like having the insane type of rushing performance and all, and what he's doing right now, leading the league in rushing yards. Um, Granted, I am pretty happy that Jacobs is having a good season because I called him the most underrated running back before the season began, and I believe my TikTok comment section was just trying to clown me by saying that I was being stupid. But
Yeah,
like Jacobs, like I like the way his vision is, the way he runs, and all that stuff.
100%.
But but to put him in the top three right now, I feel like it's a little bit of a reach. I can understand arguments for top five, but not really top three. I feel like my top three would be somewhere in no particular order would be Christian McCaffrey, Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, and maybe Saquon. I could probably put Saquon in that combo.
Yeah, I mean Saquon, I I was kind of in the same boat as you were with Josh Jacobs with him because somebody last before this season was like, "What do you think of Saquon?" I was like, "I think he's borderline a top 5 running back. Like if he
Mhm.
stays healthy this year." And everyone was like, "Bro, you cannot be serious. Like how could he be a top 5 back? He hasn't played like a year." I'm like, just watch, just watch. And now here he is, and
Mhm.
we all knew what Saquon was going to be. Um,
100%.
but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think we could maybe beat the Niners.
There's a
I'm
chance.
not holding out hope, but
Yeah,
I
neither am
mean,
I.
we're getting ahead of ourselves. We have to beat the freaking Lions first, but you
That's
know,
the thing. I kind of would like to take it a game,
I don't like.
focus on Detroit, see if we beat them. If we beat them, we're in the postseason. You
Yeah,
know,
and I mean, like, I personally, I'm not. I'm going to be upset, but if we do lose, and Seattle were to lose too, and the Lions make it in, I think that'd be cool. Like, I would love to watch this Lions team in the playoffs
I would
as much
too.
as it
And
would hurt.
honestly, I've said it on Twitter. I would root for the Lions if they make the playoffs.
In
Like
the
I want to see
NFC, oh yeah, oh
100%.
yeah,
I
yeah.
want to see the Lions, perform well in the postseason because listen, I get that the Packers and Lions they have a rivalry. I personally don't have beef with Lions fans because like
Yeah.
I got a couple of friends that I live here like in North Carolina that are Lions fans and they're like some of the most nicest individuals I've
Yeah.
ever met.
Mhm.
I would love to see, like they went through some serious depression. And I would like to
Yeah.
see Lions fans, actually enjoy themselves if they make the postseason. So if we lose to the Lions, obviously I'm going to be a little bit, a little bitter that dang, we were like having such an underwhelming season and we were this
Just
close to
close to
making the
capping it
postseason.
off. Yeah.
So close. But seeing that the Lions are in the playoffs and for something that they've suffered for years, I mean, with Matt, I think since like they had Matt Patricia, I mean, my God, I'll be rooting for the Lions 100%.
Yeah.
Like, I would 100% root for the Detroit Lions.
And I mean, like, I I do not share the same hate for the Lions that I do the Vikings and the Bears
Mm-hmm.
because I grew up watching the Vikings and Bears beat us every once in a while. But
Right.
usually I would like the Lions. That was just that team that we were like, okay, we'll take the easy win and we'll move on, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And so yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the Packers are probably going to take care of business.
I feel so too.
But you never know. I mean, Jared Goff, if he pulls out one of those random master classes he tends to have, then I
Yeah.
mean, torches our defense. Who knows?
Thing is, there's this thing about Jared Goff this season. Like he's good when he's at home, but when he's at the road, he's not as good. Like I've
Sounds
seen that a
about
lot.
right. Yeah,
Like I
that's
want
true
like I'm
because he was
yeah.
terrible against Carolina a couple weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
and they were in
And like I was
Carolina.
listening to like some like fantasy football podcasts and stuff like about Jared Goff because like there's just leagues where I'm like trying to look for a quarterback to stream in fantasy. Then I keep hearing Jared Goff's name over and over again. It just seems like he does so well when he's at home in a dome, but when he's playing on a team against a team that does not have a dome, he seems to like not have a good game. So I'm kind of curious to see how Jared Goff does. I feel like this would be the game to see whether if Detroit would actually end up keeping Jared Goff or if they turn to a new direction and get a franchise
That's
guy.
true. Yeah. Speaking of quarterbacks, I think personally the Packers are in a super interesting spot quarterback wise because Rodgers, who knows what he does after this year? Okay,
Yeah.
he could do anything he wants. He could get traded to the Jets. He could retire. He could get
Hmm.
traded somewhere else, or he could stay. And there have been rumors coming out that if he were to choose to stay, Jordan Love would request a trade, which I think is the absolute worst case scenario. Because
Hmm.
I don't know, I think Jordan Love should be a Packer at least until he gets one season to start. I don't know when it would be. I think we should keep him until he gets one season to start and just let him go out there and say, "Hey, do your thing. If we suck, we get a high draft pick. If we don't, you're the guy. Simple as that." Right?
Yeah, 100%. I'm hearing rumors about him potentially going to Las Vegas if, for some reason, if Derek Carr's not a Raider. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm
I mean,
like,
what are your thoughts on Jordan Love? How did you? I mean, obviously we've seen a very small sample size of him, but
100%.
that Eagles game this year really gave me a little bit of hope that he could be salvageable in the future.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, ESPN ranked him as the fourth best quarterback in the 2020 draft class. I don't know if I think that they ranked him as the number 4 overall quarterback. So, but seeing from that Eagles game, and obviously last year it was kind of a little underwhelming, but he does made some pretty good throws. I saw some pretty good short area targets, throws, and all that stuff. I think there's a possibility, I feel like it would be, kind of like how you see how Trevor Lawrence is starting to pan out with the receiving help he's gotten in Jacksonville with the Christian Kirk signing, the Zay Jones signing. By the way, Zay Jones went to my school. By the way, he's an alumni from my
Dope.
school. Yeah, even it sucks though. I didn't get to watch him play, but because I think he went to the NFL draft the year before I attended East Carolina. But
Yes, sir.
but yeah, Zay Jones, and then Marvin Jones, and but I think seeing the help that Trevor Lawrence is getting, I feel like we would probably need to get something like that if we want to see Jordan Love fully develop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I want to keep Rodgers as long as Rodgers can play. Don't get me wrong. Like if Rodgers continues to
Yeah,
play at
man,
this
I'm a
level,
Rodgers stan,
he's
man. I
my
love
guy.
him.
But yeah, we've been talking a lot about the playoffs, so I feel like it's only right to talk about a little bit lower level of playoffs, though. Let's talk about your Georgia Bulldogs. All right.
Hey, go Dogs,
I
baby.
mean, dude, I'm not a TCU fan, but they were the team I chose to support throughout these playoffs just because they're the underdogs. Like
Mhm.
the same thing with Cincinnati last year.
Oh yeah.
I love them to death. I think Max Duggan's awesome. I
Mhm.
think they're going to get absolutely crushed by Georgia. I see
You never know, man.
I see very little path. You're the Bulldogs fan here. Are you worried whatsoever?
I mean, there is a little bit of a concern because the way you're going to beat Georgia is if you're very good in the passing game. Like you just saw what LSU did to us in the SEC championship, and then you just saw what Ohio State did. If TCU can get the passing game going, then there's a little bit of concern. And it does suck for Georgia because our best pass rusher, Nolan Smith, who was the leader of our defense, he had the N'Kobe Dean role for our defense last year. That he had for our defense last year. He has it this year. He had it suffered a pec injury against our game against Florida. He's out for the year. He's not playing. Nolan Smith, I think, was pretty regarded as a high draft pick. It's kind of curious to see what he does, where he ends up going. But if you're going to beat Georgia, you better be good in the passing game because that's the one area of concern where Georgia's very young at that area.
Mm-hmm.
Keely Ringo, obviously you may have heard his name, probably the best corner in this draft class. If I don't know if any other corners have been there. I haven't
Correct
kept up with it.
me if I'm wrong, but he didn't have that great of a game against Ohio State, did he?
He
I feel like I
didn't.
kind of
He didn't. I
saw
think
some
there
slander
were
on
moments where
Twitter.
Marvin Harrison got him. Marvin Harrison Jr. got him. Um, it was kind of an underwhelming game, but there were a few plays where Keely Ringo kind of did. He kind of broken off some plays and some passes, but it was not like the typical, Keely Ringo type of game like you
Right.
would think.
Like how do you think he'll match up against? I don't know how much he'll actually be covering it, but how do you like his chances against Quentin Johnston, who's obviously like a top 3 receiver in this next draft class? Do you think he'll be all right? I mean, he's a lot smaller than Quentin Johnston, which is a problem, but
That is a problem, and that's where I'm a little bit concerned with how Ringo does with Quentin. I think you could see maybe him holding his ground. He kind of held a little bit of his ground when matched up with Marvin Harrison, but obviously Quentin Johnson is way bigger.
a little more physical, yeah.
And yeah, so I think it's kind of interesting to see how he matches up with Quentin Johnson. I think that you'll see some where I think Quentin Johnson may get him, then some where Keely Ringo may, potentially win that battle. So I think I'll see a little mix of a 50-50 chance,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think Georgia is they're pretty close to unbeatable, and I know you know this because you've watched them all year. I don't know, something about them, and TCU is just I don't think they have the firepower, and I don't
Yeah,
think they're. I think I'm very worried about their offensive line because
that yeah.
you talked about the Georgia secondary not being great. They're a little young, but that pass rush against the TCU offensive line
Yeah, Georgia's D line.
They're gonna eat. They're gonna eat.
Jalen Carter is probably gonna have a day, but I'm not gonna really guarantee it. But because what Kirby Smart likes to do is sub out Jalen Carter just for him to get a breather in some stuff. You kind of see that with so that's what Kirby Smart likes to do. So you'll probably see a few reps where you don't see Jalen Carter on that defensive line. But yeah, Georgia's defensive line, they're pretty massive. It's pretty good.
I got to ask you this question as a Georgia fan. Do you think Stetson Bennett has any chance of being a quarterback in the NFL?
The thing with Stetson Bennett, and Georgia fans kind of complained about him, but like way before he won before he got the national championship and all that, it was just his turnovers. Like that's the one thing, and the thing about Stetson Bennett that I feel like he could have gotten the Heisman Trophy. The one thing that hurts him is the turnovers, because because I remember Georgia fans in the past, like they would make jokes like, "Oh, he's just guaranteed to make a mistake or turn the ball over at least once in this game, and we're gonna for some way we're gonna end up winning this game." Like that's the thing that Stetson Bennett gets. But me personally, as a Georgia fan, I'm actually very happy to see how Stetson Bennett grew, and how he's matured enough, and gotten a lot better in the pocket, become much better as a passer and all that. We did have JT Daniels, who eventually then ended up transferring to West Virginia. We kind of wanted to see how he would have done, because when we had that bowl game against Cincinnati back in 2020, JT looked really good. And then I saw JT got injured. We had to get Stetson back, and Georgia fans were a bit concerned last year about him, but Stetson proved a lot of doubters wrong. I think Stetson, if he gets drafted to an NFL team, and I think there's a pretty good chance he will.
Especially if they win 2 straight national championships.
100%. Yeah. I could definitely see Stetson getting drafted. I think if he is in a team where he sits behind like a veteran or probably about somebody, there's a chance. I think that's really good for him. Like being a backup and then potentially working your way to a starter. I think that's where I could see Stetson going.
Yeah, and just talking about Georgia as a whole, I mean, they're playing for the second straight national championship. Do you think that they're going to continue this level of play in the next few years? Like they're going to be the 1 seed. They're going to win every single game. They're going to just be dominating everybody. They're going to waltz their way into the playoff. Or do you think that we're going to see a sort of regression from Georgia? Once they lose a couple of guys, they're going to lose Jalen Carter. They're probably going to lose Keely Ringo. They're probably they're losing Stetson Bennett for sure. So they're not a quarterback. Do you think that we see Georgia kind of fall off, or do you expect this team to just continue to dominate like they have been?
I still think we'll be a top 5 team because the one thing that's going to really help is the recruiting class. Georgia consistently gets in like the top 5 in terms of like the recruiting class for, incoming freshman students. The one thing about Georgia that I am going to miss is the running game that we had from Kendall Milton and Kenny McIntosh, because those are our 2 physical runners. But we're starting to see Dejon Edwards come along, and we're starting to see Dejon Edwards, and I forgot the other whatever his name is, Robinson. I can't remember his last name for some reason, but apparently Georgia fans give him Nick Chubb comparisons. I don't know, for some reason I keep forgetting his name, but I've seen a lot of Nick Chubb comparisons from him. As a matter of fact, I have to pull up Georgia's depth chart right now because for some reason I just can't remember it. I feel like a fake fan for not remembering. I don't know if you ever had moments like these when you're trying, the guy that you're talking about, but you just cannot remember his name for some reason.
Yeah.
I hate when this stuff happens, but one of our running backs, in the meantime, I'm just going to say he looks like he gets a lot of Nick Chubb comparisons. I think Georgia's run game is something that they've been consistently good at. Tom Monken, I think, is such a masterful at, developing, our run game. And I think that also depends on him too. What if Todd Monken gets a head coaching job?
Right. Yeah.
That is another thing we have to consider, because last year Dan Lanning was our defensive coordinator, and now he's the Now he's the head coach for Oregon. So I think there's a lot of variables that we need to consider.
Mm-hmm.
Um, will Tom Monken be our offensive coordinator? If he stays, then I think we could see good things from our offense. I kind of like to see what Georgia's next quarterbacks, Carson Beck and Brock Vandergrift, kind of like to see what they end up doing. Um, you know, see how they play and develop, as quarterback, because they were 4 or 5 star recruits coming out of high school. So I'm kind of excited to see how they do, and they get their reps whenever Georgia's was blowing out, a certain team or something. And from the reps that I've seen from Carson Beck, and I think Carson Beck may be the next man up. I feel like he's got potential to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Like, I can see the arm talent, I can see the tools that he possesses. I think there's a good chance. In regards to their defense, Georgia, they consistently land a lot of defenses.
Oh yeah,
Malachi
they should
Starks,
be fine.
yeah, Malachi Starks is just a redshirt freshman. I think he's looking really good. Let's see. Branson Robinson, that's who he is. I just looked it up. Yeah, there you go. Branson Robinson. That's the guy that it's either him or Dejon Edwards that gets the Nick Chubb comparisons. But those two are going to be the next 2 running backs because Georgia's a running back by committee. So Georgia, I think his running back is going to be good. It's going to suck. Lad McConkey will be a junior next year. He's currently a sophomore listed, and he's our best wide receiver. Well, other than Adonai Mitchell.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And McConkey is like a guy you can use, he's like a gadget type of wide receiver. So you can see a lot of jet sweeps from him. So I kind of like, so I think, so you're probably going to see Lad McConkey, being here next year. Arian Smith kind of showed some flashes even last game against Ohio State. Donnie Mitchell. So I kind of like the wide receiving core. So I think, and Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint's another good one. Even though he's a junior, we'll see if he returns next year.
Mm-hmm.
But Rosemy-Jack Saint, I think he could do something really good. I am gonna miss Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington. Those two are massive.
Brock Bowers is, man, he's crazy.
100%. And oh man, like I'm seeing people compare him to Travis Kelce.
No, dude, like legit. He's that next big, strong, fast tight end for sure.
We saw Kyle Pitts. This year was supposed to be Jelani Woods, but obviously the Colts are a dumpster fire. We didn't really get to see him.
Yeah, this year though, whoever gets Brock Bowers, man, it's gonna be crazy.
The team that gets Brock Bowers, because I think he's a first rounder. I see the first rounder in him.
Yeah, for sure. A little bit more on Georgia's future. I know that, I don't know if you've seen these, but there are rumors that an NFL team is going to pursue Kirby Smart this season, as that there are going to be some NFL teams who have vacancies that are looking at Kirby Smart.
I did not see that.
I have 2 questions for you. 1, do you think he'd actually leave Georgia? And 2, do you think he would be a good NFL head coach?
I don't think he leaves Georgia. I think Kirby's just too loyal for Georgia. I mean,
I don't think so either, but I think it's interesting.
It's interesting. I think it's kind of be. We did give Kirby Smart the contract, I think, this past offseason. Mm-hmm. So I believe we did extended him. So I don't think Kirby leaves Georgia, but it does make a lot of interesting. Kind of like the Jim Harbaugh potentially leaving Michigan for,
I personally think Jim Harbaugh is gone. I think he's getting a job in the NFL. I would hire him if I were an NFL team looking for a coach right now.
He had success with the 49ers when he was coaching.
He was never a bad NFL head coach. It's just Michigan was a better offer then, because obviously at the end of his time with the 49ers, that team kind of fell apart. Kaepernick got whatever happened to Kaepernick because of the whole national anthem thing, and then he left and the team sucked, and so he's just like, I'm going to go play for a consistent contender in the college football world. And he's had a good record at Michigan, except against Ohio State pretty much. That's about it.
And he can't win bowl games. He
can't win bowl games. Yeah, but honestly, if I'm an NFL team looking for a coach, I'm looking at him. Yeah.
I was honestly kind of surprised he didn't get hired last year because he was also one of the candidates for
And he
head
was
coach.
like very close to being a Viking, and I would have been furious. I mean, they still got they
Oh, do
still got.
not
I mean,
remind
they
me.
still got Kevin O'Connell, who's been great, but Jim
O'Connell's.
Harbaugh with that Vikings team.
Oh
Uh,
my! If they had dude, do not remind me the emotional roller coaster that I went through
oh my
when I was
gosh,
hearing
dude,
the
yeah.
Jim Harbaugh Minnesota Vikings rumors. Oh,
Did he? Yeah, but I personally do not think. I love him as a college coach, but I don't think Kirby Smart would be some
yeah, I
great
feel it. I
NFL head
mean, you saw
coach.
Nick Saban. Not he wasn't that good of
Didn't
a
work
coach.
out. Urban Meyer sucked. Didn't work
Urban
out.
Urban Meyer has probably got to be the
Absolute
worst head
dumpster
coach
fire.
in history.
Yeah, awful.
Like, if we're talking Jamarcus Russell being the biggest bust, like Urban Meyer is astronomically bad.
The worst coach to ever coach an
I
NFL team.
I
I'm
hated
convinced.
him.
He's awful.
Oh man.
Yeah, college coaches don't usually work out if they came from college. Like Jim
Mm-hmm.
Harbaugh, you hire him out of Michigan because he's already been an NFL head coach and he has
And
success in that.
yeah, 100%. 49ers
Like
went to the NFC Championship game that year.
and like Kirby Smart, like sure, like he's had success at Georgia, but
Yeah,
you've never
and
seen
he's
him
a
at a
great
professional
defensive coach.
level.
I mean,
Yeah.
he was a DB when he was playing
hmm
college.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a defensive guru, but I don't know about head coaching in the NFL because it's different. These guys are playing for their monies. It's not like college where you're the one in charge and like you have to discipline your players. It's not like that in the NFL, kind of in like that sort of sense, you know? It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, like players, they have their family, they're men, they got their lives on the line, their families are there, and it's like it's like the type of energy, it's like a little bit different from the NFL than
hmm
college. And I think that's kind of where college coaches don't understand that. And that's kind of
Yeah.
why you see a lot of failure.
hmm Yeah. I mean, looking at the time, the last thing that I want to talk about with you is your award picks. Now that we're pretty much at the end of the season, so we'll start off with the big one. I'm gonna let you go first for all of these, so you can steal my answers if you want. But who are you taking right now for the NFL MVP? What do you got?
It's Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
The reason why I'm getting it's because let's be clear, people were legitimately thinking that Mahomes would not be as good when the moment
Oh
Tyreek Hill
my
got
gosh,
traded.
yeah.
I
Oh
was
my
like, this
gosh.
had to be the dumbest thing that I saw. Twitter was going nuts about it, and I'm like, are we really about to act like Patrick Mahomes is not all of a sudden just going to be a good, quarterback just because without Patrick Mahomes? Like, first and foremost, and then the same with Tyreek Hill. Like, I've seen people act like Tyreek Hill was no longer going to be a top 5 wide receiver, but you saw what he did when Alex Smith was at quarterback. He had success, and Tyreek Hill was like having like a Pro Bowl type of season. Now with Patrick Mahomes, like you just can't look at you look at Patrick Mahomes and his talent, and you look at that stuff. How can you say that this man's not going to succeed without Tyreek Hill? Like, I don't see how you could say this man's going to fail without Tyreek Hill. Like, I get it, Tyreek Hill is the X factor, and like
Yeah,
he's the
but
guy.
like this
Six
is
factor.
like the most talented quarterback we've ever seen play the sport. Like it's crazy.
100%. And yeah, I get he's got Travis Kelce, but here's the problem: like Mahomes' talent is the reason why Andy Reid's offense is more dangerous than ever. Like the Andy Reid's offense unlocked a lot more from Patrick Mahomes than it did with Andy Reid.
hmm
And Patrick Mahomes is showing to you again, like he's still that guy. And it's crazy that he's over at 500,000 passing yards if I can remember correctly.
This year, yep.
Yep, over 5,000 passing. Leads the league in passing yards.
hmm
Leads the league in passing touchdowns. Like, come on,
hmm
man. Patrick Mahomes has kind of defied the odds. And I get people are going to be upset, like I get to quarterback award. And I can understand because Justin Jefferson should be in that conversation. And I 100% believe he should.
Sure.
But the problem is that, yeah, I can see why Jefferson is in it. But it's just the trends being like the quarterbacks were the difference makers for the team. And I think that's why you're seeing quarterbacks get the awards more and more often than wide receivers do. Because I feel like quarterbacks will have a much better impact to the team than so the other skill positions.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of why you're starting to. So why quarterbacks are starting to get the most awards. But Patrick Mahomes for the season that he's having, I mean,
Yeah.
and the Chiefs are potentially going to get the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
There's a good chance that it happens. So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, for what Mahomes is doing without Tyreek Hill, like there's really no debate. I would give him the MVP.
Yeah. I have gone back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back to my original pick after these past couple of weeks. My pick is that bad man. We're number 1 down in Philadelphia. I think the NFL MVP right now is Jalen Hurts. And there's a couple of reasons. I think, first of all, the main argument that people give against Jalen Hurts is that he doesn't have the counting stats that Patrick Mahomes does. But
Right.
when you look at last year, Aaron Rodgers did not have the counting stats that Tom Brady had. Aaron Rodgers did not have the counting stats that Justin Herbert had. Justin Herbert threw for
Right.
like 20 more touchdowns and like 1,000 more yards than Aaron Rodgers did last season. And Rodgers won the MVP award because he led the best team in the NFL to a 13-4 record and the 1 seed.
Mm-hmm.
And Jalen Hurts not only is doing that, but the 2 weeks he's missed, they have not been good.
Right.
And everyone said Gardner Minshew can do the exact same thing if they put him in that Jalen Hurts could be doing.
100%.
And Gardner Minshew comes in and he stinks it up. They lose to the Saints, who, if they had Jalen Hurts, they would have blown up by 50. Okay, they lose to the Cowboys. If they in that late game situation, when that game is close and tied, I trust Jalen
Eagles would have
Hurts.
won that game.
Eagles would have won that game because Gardner Minshew sold them. And I think my pick was Hurts, and then it was Mahomes, and then it was like Mahomes, and now it's Hurts again because I've just, after seeing the Philadelphia without him, people didn't realize how big of an impact he had on this team's success.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if he comes back next week and they play the Giants and they crush him again, I think he's the clear MVP. Because honestly,
I see the argument.
If he comes back and he does that, and Gardner Minshew wouldn't have even put up 20 in the Giants, and he goes up and he does exactly what they did to him the first time, I think Jalen Hurts. I think if there was an NFL Most Improved Player award, he would probably win that.
100%.
But there isn't,
and I'm so happy for him because I called him to be the next breakout quarterback for this year, and it's finally working out. I mean, you're starting to see like what happens when you give a quarterback a wide receiver. Josh Allen got Stephon Diggs. Now Jalen Hurts. He has AJ Brown.
Yeah.
What? So I mean, like, what is it, man?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Now people are saying, when will Justin Fields get a wide receiver?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you see this a lot. It's just like and now you just saw Jacksonville trade for Calvin Ridley. And I think Calvin Ridley.
Oh, man, I cannot wait for Calvin Ridley to be in that Jags offense next year.
Mm-hmm. Calvin Ridley. I mean, people kind of forgot. Calvin Ridley is like, so damn good.
Like before, like the year before he got suspended. The year before he got suspended, he was hurt, but the year before that, he was like literally like, and everybody had him in the top 10. Like he was so good that year.
Season or 2019?
I think it was the COVID year, yeah, because they had just lost Julio Jones to the Titans, and man, dude, it's crazy because he was like in everybody's top 10. And I was just like, how is he doing this?
Calvin Ridley was in my top 10 that year.
Yeah.
The COVID year when
because Julio had gotten hurt and he was the wide receiver 1, lit it up, and then obviously he got hurt the next year, suspended now, but I think he'll be great with Jacksonville.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And alongside with the Green Bay Packers, I keep up also with the Atlanta Falcons because I used to live in the Atlanta area.
Mm-hmm.
So, but Calvin Ridley, I remember Falcons fans, they were hyped when they got Ridley. Like, especially for the Falcons fans that I know, they were really hyped when they got Ridley in. It kind of sucks to see. It kind of sucks that he's gone because I kind of would like to see how match him with Drake London and Desmond Ridder. See how well they do, but he's going to help Trevor Lawrence a lot, and I'm seeing people push MVP narratives next year for Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I mean it could happen for sure.
It could 100%. He's showing what his potential is right now. Calvin Ridley is a great wide receiver for stretching downfield and has that big playability. I'm very, very curious to see what he does.
For sure. Moving on, looking at Offensive Player of the Year. Who do you got?
So it was for me, I was on a roller coaster because at first I was like, it's Tyreek Hill. And then Josh Jacobs was coming along. So was Saquon. But I may have, but I probably am going to give it to Justin Jefferson. I think for what that dude's doing, like you got to give it to him, and he was close to getting like 2,000 yards. And Justin Jefferson in critical moments has kind of stepped up. That Bills game when he made that ridiculous catch, that looked like to be an interception.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson.
Any other receiver that's down there, it's done. It's finished.
It's done. 100%. No other receivers making that catch. You're going to argue for Stephon Diggs because Stephon Diggs has pretty good hands.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
Adam Thielen's not making that catch. 100% KJ Osborne's not going to make that catch.
No.
I don't know about any other wide receiver in football.
No.
Well, you're going to argue Tay Adams, but
I think Tay, because of his size, would probably get up there at least. But yeah. I mean.
No, and listen, that ball looked like it was going to get intercepted more than it was going to get caught. Because the DB had two hands on the ball, and he was just kind of grabbing onto it, and Justin Jefferson just one-handedly.
Yeah.
Like when you see his ability in the clutch and for what he's doing, and then obviously just being so ridiculous, and Kevin O'Connell, scheming up plays and getting Jefferson open, and for him to, break out, I think like you have to give him Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, and the fact that he was literally in the discussion for literally not breaking Calvin Johnson's record, but setting 2,000 yards in a single season. And he was already breaking franchise records in receiving yards for like Vikings history. To like Justin Jefferson to me is Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, he's my pick as well. Everything I would have said about him, you just did, so we can just move right along from that one. Defensive Player of the Year. I think we might have different picks for this one, but I want to see who do you got.
That one's my hardest one.
Oh,
because I'm literally alternating between Nick Bosa and Micah Parsons.
Those are the guys. Yep.
I feel like Parsons may end up winning it only because he's played more games than Nick Bosa. But Bosa, to me, the impact he has had on the defensive line, my gosh. So it's tough. But I feel like Parsons may get it just because he played more games than Bosa. I think Bosa had an injury that kind of kept him out for a few games or so. But man, Bosa's incredible. But I feel like they're going to give it to Parsons.
I am going with a extremely dark horse pick.
Ooh,
a man who has 15 and a half sacks, one of the most underrated defensive players this season, Matthew Judon. I think is going to win the Defensive Player of the Year. Judon,
that's not a bad pick, man.
I think it's only two less than Bosa. Okay, I understand Bosa's been good, but Matthew Judon has been not only one of the most underrated defensive players, but he has impacted the Patriots a lot more than Nick Bosa impacts. The 49ers defense is one of the best in the league. The only reason the Patriots defense is relevant is because Matthew Judon plays for them. Dead serious.
Exactly.
And he 100%. makes a lot more plays outside of edge rushing than Nick Bosa does.
Yes.
He's a better all-around defender in my opinion. And with the sack total, like if he gets one sack and gets up to 16 and a half and Bosa doesn't get any, it's only a one sack difference. I think with what Matthew Judon does, not only for a defense that isn't as good, he helps carry and not as good defense. He also, like if he finishes with pretty much identical counting stats plus like his forced fumbles, and I think he had a pick at some point. Like, I think he is a very good argument.
Judon is a damn good pick, and I love Matt Judon. I knew that like the moment I don't know how the Ravens got rid of him.
No.
I don't know how they didn't.
Never know.
I really did not know why the Ravens did not resign him. Matthew Judon 100% deserved it, but he did change that Patriots defense 100%. And
because
I think they traded away Kyle Van Noy. They lost J.C. Jackson.
Yeah, because the thing was, and that's just what I was about to say. Everyone this year was like, it's Bill Belichick, but this defense sucks. It's not going to do anything. And their defense is like super good and super efficient. And it's because Matthew Judon.
Top 5 defense in football, man.
And his double team rate, I think he's the defensive player of the year,
I mean, he's incredible. Like literally, I think you may potentially convince me to change my pick. I'm loving
Judon's good, man. I like him a lot.
Judon 100%. I want to see him like be a finalist or like be one of the 3 people to get defensive player of the year.
Mm-hmm. All right, moving on to the rookies. Okay, offensive rookie of the year. I feel
Garrett
like,
Wilson.
yeah, Garrett Wilson. Simple as
It's
that.
Garrett Wilson. Kenneth Walker would be the only one that
I
makes
just
it.
think he's missed too much time.
That's
I
the
think
thing.
I
Kenneth
think if
Walker.
he'd been healthy all season, he'd probably be the obvious choice. Same thing with Brees Hall. Like Brees
That
Hall,
Brees Hall was my pick.
if Brees Hall, he was everybody's pick at like the midway point, but if he hadn't torn his ACL, he'd be the front runner clear
One,
as
I don't think it would
day
have been
right
close
now. It wouldn't have
because
been
if you
close.
watch the Jets' offense was clicking because it was all centered around Brees Hall and Zach.
It was the
Wilson,
run game, yeah.
It was the run game, and Zach Wilson. All he had to do check down to Brees Hall, and Brees Hall was just going to make a play.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally the
did it
Jets
against the
offense.
Packers. Like he had like a 20-yard touchdown, like a screenplay against the Packers. You know, that
Mhm.
game. That's the game where I watched that full thing. I was just like, man, Brees Hall he's going to be a
Brees Hall is
superstar.
incredible, and it just sucks that he tore his ACL because I feel like he would have ran away with it.
Yeah,
I get Dameon Pierce has been incredible, but I
just think the running backs have been too injured, and Dameon Pierce is never a good case. And I think Wilson's far and away the best receiver from this class. I 100%. See people pushing Christian Watson. I'm a Packers fan. I love him, but he hasn't produced consistently enough, and he has pretty inflated touchdown numbers. Because like he has a lot of touchdowns this year, but like he had like 3 in one game, 2 in another. You know, just like he kind of like stat padded for a couple of games.
Right. And I'm seeing Brock Purdy getting. Which I'm
that's ridiculous to me.
I'm like, how?
I get that he's a quarterback and the NFL is pretty quarterback biased, but he's going to end up playing like 5 games this season. And it's not like he's been phenomenal. Any of these rookie quarterbacks, I think could do what Brock Purdy's doing in this system.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe not Malik Willis because he's such a project, and I don't know if he would work in a Shanahan offense. But like Desmond Ritter, I think he'd be doing a lot better than he is in Atlanta 100%. If he was in San Francisco right now. I'm sure you know that.
Me a little bit.
Yeah, and Ritter, I think he'd be fine. I think I'm blanking on the other guys, but Sam Howell probably be fine. Kenny Pickett, he's doing good in a worse system, so I think that he'd be fine. I think Brock Purdy is, yeah. I think Brock Purdy's really getting he plays in a good offense. It's Mac Jones. Mac Jones last year played a really good offense with Bill Belichick, and everyone's like, he's the best quarterback from the class. He had the best stats, and then he goes and gets blown out in the playoffs, and this year has been super underwhelming. I think Brock Purdy is going to end up doing the same, and I get it if he had played like this all season, like say he was their starter this season and he had played at this level all season, sure, maybe give it to him. But 5 games over Garrett Wilson, it'd be insane.
And that was not the 49ers way. They were wanting to see how Trey Lance was going to do this year. And
he wasn't even in their fifth thought. Like you think they ever sat down there in their meetings before the season and like mentioned Brock Purdy's name once? No, they didn't.
Yeah, that's
like they had no plans to use him unless everything goes wrong, and it did. So
right. So I mean, listen, it's nice to see Brock Purdy, be like the Mr. Irrelevant last pick of the draft, and he's actually playing pretty good. But like,
yeah,
we needed more games from
big sample size. Yeah,
huge sample size.
Yeah,
and Chris Olave at one point was kind of leading the rookie race, but the Saints' offense is just so bad.
Yeah, and that was before Garrett Wilson really got going.
Yeah, and that was like also it was I think, dude, I don't even know what the Saints are doing. Like, why on earth what's going on with Jameis Winston? Like, I get it. He's not that good, but he's so much better than Andy Dalton.
Has to
and
be,
it's
right?
not like and it's not like Jameis has suffered like a season and injury. He looks fine, and I
think he's okay.
And I haven't seen much injury reports, but correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Jameis Winston has that little injury.
No, he's been healthy because he's been a healthy scratch. And the thing is, they don't have any reason to tank because they don't have their first round pick.
They gave that away to the Eagles.
The worse they get, the better the Eagles draft. Which
exactly.
I don't understand helping out one of your biggest NFC rivals, but that's just me, But who knows?
Philly fleeced the fuck out of them with that.
They did.
They
did. Yeah, they did. Defensive rookie of the year. I think we have the same answer for this one, and I hate the Tariq Woolen thing because I do think he's good, but people use like interceptions and like forced
He's getting
fumbles
the
and
Trayvon
touchdowns.
Diggs type of treatment, and I hate to
Yeah,
see it.
because I don't think that corners should be like judged or based on like their rankings based on picks,
Interceptions.
right? Because there were really good corners who in their careers, like Byron Jones, really good corner in Miami, he has 4 career picks. That dude
Yeah,
has 4 career picks. And like Jair Alexander doesn't get that. Like he's not like a double digit pick guy, but he's one of the best corners in football. Jalen
right,
Ramsey got like 5 interceptions last season. He's one of the best corners in football. AJ
right.
Terrell, I don't even know how many he
Mhm.
had last season. I mean, this season he's been hurt and stuff like that, and they've been bad. But last season he was one of the best corners in football. It's not like he was like a pick merchant, right? Like
Mhm.
so the best quarterbacks don't get a lot of picks because they make good plays on the ball,
Yeah,
and
the only way you're judge corners is their coverage ability, how they
yeah,
match up against wide receivers, and if
and
that's the best.
and Sauce Gardner is
Charles Gardner
better
is
at that than Tariq Woolen. He is.
100.
He's one of the best. Like this dude is like first in like every single man coverage stat as a rookie.
Mhm.
That you know how
That's
rare that is.
incredible.
You know how rare that is. That's like Darrell Revis, like Deion Sanders. Like those 2 guys are the guys who did that. And Tariq Woolen, I get it. He's athletic. He's a big guy. I think the reason why Tariq Woolen gets this hype is because he was drafted so low,
Right.
and he's like exceeding all these expectations. Whereas Sauce, they drafted him very
Fourth
high.
overall.
Like he had to have been good, or people would have slandered the absolute garbage out of him.
Like
Like,
Sauce
how
Gardner
could you pick
was,
him
yeah.
fourth? Right? Yeah.
And the cool thing about Sauce Gardner is that Cincinnati is in my school's conference, East Carolina's conference.
Hmm.
I saw Sauce Gardner play.
That's
Him,
awesome.
Desmond Ritter, and Alec Pierce. Boy, did my school get our butts kicked. I
I can
watched that.
imagine.
I was
Yeah, I
like,
can
oh
imagine.
my goodness. But it was cool to see Sauce Gardner, at my school and
Yeah.
whatnot. But Sauce Gardner, like 100%. And people were kind of doubting him. Is he going to be this good in the NFL? Because obviously, this crappy conference that he played in college.
Has he allowed a touchdown yet?
Not yet.
I don't think he has.
There's like people were trying to show some plays where Sauce allowed a touchdown, but I think that was more on DJ Reed or
I know that, and like, I don't know. Does it count against you for allowing a touchdown if you were in zone coverage?
I don't think so, but I wouldn't be so
He
sure.
definitely has not allowed one in man coverage. Maybe
He
there's
has
one in
not.
zone where he was the closest guy, whatever. But in man coverage, nobody has gotten him.
Would you rank Sauce Gardner in your top 5?
Yeah.
I
don't buy CB1 yet, but I do think he's top 5.
yes. Top 5, 100%.
I think that I'm still taking Jair over him.
100%.
I think I'm still taking Jalen Ramsey over him.
Mm-hmm.
I think I take this year Pat Surtain over him. And then 4 and 5, I think, are him and JC Horn. But I don't really know which one I want to put above the other quite yet.
Right.
I think those are the
sucks
top
for
5
JC
guys.
Horn that he did not make the Pro Bowl.
He doesn't get any recognition because he plays for the Panthers. That's it. Like
Shout
JC
out to
Horn.
Nico, by the way. Nico, Elite Takes, that he called out the breakout for JC Horn. And I kind of was pretty high on JC Horn too, but
I was too. I don't think there was any reason for you to be low on JC Horn.
I mean, he was the first corner taken in last year's draft class before Surtain.
And he got hurt last year, but before he got hurt, people forget that he was like very, very good, like as a rookie.
He was doing pretty well.
Like he was doing the same kind of stuff that Sauce Gardner and Tariq Woolen are doing this year. He just got hurt. People forget about him. But yeah JC Horn deserves his flowers. The Pro Bowl, we know it's useless at this point because it's them playing Madden now. So who cares?
Yeah, JC Horn is incredible. I think his athleticism is something else.
Mm-hmm. All right. Finally, last award we're going to talk about, Coach of the Year. Who are you taking?
So you can make a case for Nick Sirianni because the Eagles have the best record. Kevin O'Connell, 100% for changing the entire Vikings offense.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Mike McDaniel opening up Tua with his offensive schemes and, the Shanahan-esque offense using the run game along. You love to see it. But I'm probably going to give it to Brian Daboll. And that's and the reason why I'm giving it to Daboll is because obviously the Giants organization was just in a dumpster fire.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe Shane obviously had the changed the entire organization, the entire culture. Unlike what I can't remember the previous general manager's name. That's how bad it is. and then obviously such a massive upgrade over Joe Judge and
Yeah,
Pat Shermer.
I just think that like I originally had Dable when they were after they beat the Packers. I was like, it's probably Dable,
Mhm.
and then the Giants kind of they fell off a cliff pretty much,
Right.
and I was like, and maybe not anymore. Maybe it's Nick Sirianni now. But now that they have locked a playoff spot and they've won the past couple of games, this roster is not a playoff football team. They are not a playoff football team. But Brian Dable made them a playoff football team.
Right.
He turned Daniel Jones into a quarterback who, by the way, I I talked about this on my last episode of my podcast. Daniel Jones is playing great this year. I don't want to hear it. Daniel Jones, give him his flowers. He has been good this year. He's not turning the ball over at nearly as high of a rate as he did. He is making the right reads. He's very good with his legs. I think Daniel Jones deserves to get his 5th-year option picked up or whatever they need to do. I think he gets extended after the season.
Mhm.
That's my take. And that's stable. And the way he's running this offense, that is successful with Isaiah Hodgins as a number 1 wide receiver, with like Richie James and like Darius
Mhm.
Slayton, like no Kadarius Tony, backups up against the wall, and they're in the playoffs. I think there's no argument for anybody else but Dable at this point for me.
Yeah, 100%. And nobody thought people were expecting the Giants to win like 2 or 3 games or
Yeah,
have like a
people
top
had the
5
Giants going
pick.
like 2-15. Like,
Even I did. And
yeah,
then
I had them.
I
I
had
had
to
them
make an
winning like
apology
5 or 6
video.
games. Yeah,
I had to make an apology video to Giants fans because they were getting on me.
yeah,
But listen, I'm happy for the Giants that
I am
they're in
too.
the playoffs because seeing Dave Gettleman be the clown that he is and running that show, then trading away Odell Beckham for like I don't know what the heck for like, I don't know what purpose did you trade Odell, which I still don't understand that trade.
Nobody does.
Um, and then just throwing the organization down the ground and then missing on draft picks and stuff. I mean, for and then obviously following up with bad coaching. I mean, having what Pat Shermer lead this team, and then now Joe Judge, who's just been a disaster. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and then you see like and then obviously John Mara getting into his senses, hiring Joe Shane, and then getting Brian Dable. Brian Dable changed everything. The culture around the Giants, it's different. This team wants to play hard. They play for him. Like, and for the Giants, like obviously blocking up the playoff spot and taking some other teams and getting the best out of other teams. They got the best out of the Packers. They almost did with the Vikings. You have to give Judge
Yeah.
give it to Judge 100%,
Mm-hmm.
and kept it close with the Cowboys. At times, even like it looked like the Giants. They were gonna. I was like, could the Giants actually beat the Cowboys in those games?
Yeah.
Like that was my reactions when I was watching
Mm-hmm.
those Giants and Cowboys game. And usually, the Cowboys would 100% smoke the Giants from what we've seen recently. This Giants team seems to be more competitive. Brian Dable 100% changed the culture. You have to give it to him.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is all I have for us. If you want to
All
go
right.
ahead and plug your socials, you can go ahead and do that now. Where can we find you?
All right. So pretty much everywhere, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, at HammyTakes. Go ahead and follow. As you can see, the name is right here on my screen. But other than that, that's pretty much it, man.
Yeah.
And also,
Thanks again.
yeah, and go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go. Yes, sir. I will see
All
you
right.
later, man.
All right, dude. Take it easy, man.